Good morning, everyone. My name is Doreen Osman. I joined the Impact Group. It's been a year now, and I am the Director of Strategic Services. I have a lot of experience in the pre-K through 12 school space. I was a teacher, a principal, curriculum director, and assistant superintendent for 35 years. And then I also have been part of the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that supports public schools and the endeavors of public education. And I've been a distribution committee member for 23 years. So I get to see what happens across the state. And not only is it about schools, but it's about organizations that support schools. So I've had that advantage and that perspective. And I've gotten to work with a lot of really great people over this last year, getting to know um, just so many cool people, park people. I'm looking at Rich, especially working with preservation parks, and there's dark parks and school districts and fire departments and architecture firms. So I love that opportunity.
And in fact, we're lucky to have Doreen. She's an absolute rock star. So we're so just for our director of strategic services, so cool. Tom Speak started the Impact Group about 25 years ago. We love this kind of stuff. We love strategic planning. It did really we do strategic planning, we do communication services and building culture development. Today we're talking about strategic planning. So let's get into this. A strategic plan up front. Why do you need one? I mean, this seems like the silliest thing, right? But you wouldn't believe the amount of organizations that, honest to God, have no idea where they're going, or maybe the executive director or the CEO, or maybe they've got an idea where they're going, but the rest of the folks don't. A big part of culture, frankly, is your folks knowing where you're going. And one of the things Doreen and I see a lot is there's a misunderstanding. People, well, of course, we're a park district. We serve parks. We're a school district. We serve they honest to gosh don't know. So a plan has a couple of big things that, and again, we're not going to talk so much about creating the plan as the tracking, but just up front, a strategic plan should have three big components. The first one it should have is it genuinely has input from the community. The community has an opportunity to genuinely weigh in. And gosh, with Rich at Preservation Parks, we just did a ton of that. We're gathering this information. It's genuinely the communities. The second, it has to be actionable. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Who is doing what, when, and how is it measurable? Goodness, I think we've all been a part of plans before where everybody's excited and you work so hard and there's a plan. And a year later, you're like, where's the plan? Well, it's on George's filing cabinet. That doesn't do anybody any good, right? So who's doing what, when? And the last part is there should actually be excitement. There should be excitement of your crew. There should be excitement from your community. Again, I don't know if the folks on this call, have you guys ever been a part of a grueling, long strategic planning process? And at the end of it, you're so beaten to the floor that you can't run the process. The idea is just to do this and be energized at the end where we can get going. So that's the idea. Those are the three big components. So now we've got a strategic plan and everybody's excited. Let's talk about some of the reasons why we want to track it, why we want to move forward. Doreen, let's talk a little bit about trust.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about trust and how one builds trust and how a strategic plan is an important component of that.
Of course. So relationships are a big part of trust, and I do want to tie it back to our process, Tom, because with the community engagement, hearing from your staff, hearing from all of your stakeholders starts to build that trust. And so when that strategic plan is developed and there's goals and there's objectives, they one of the goals is that they see their input, they see their priorities in in the goals, in the plan. So you listened, the organizations is showing that they listened, and then put those ideas and put those priorities into goals and objectives, into their priorities for their organization. So when you have these engaged people wanting to give feedback and give input because they care so much, and then they see a goal that talks about what preservation or conservation or a thriving staff or whatever it is, they see that. And so I think it does start there, that builds that trust. So that goal and the action steps are showing that you listened. So that's building trust. You're putting it into action.
Could I kind of I
Yeah,
want to build upon what you said there in that a lot of organizations assume that their staff members close the loop. So we've talked to our staff members. Our staff members want ABC. We've been very intentional about including A, B, and C into our strategic plan. We publish the strategic plan and we move on. Successful organizations get the crew back together or in staff meetings, whatever, and said, gang, if you remember, everybody was really passionate about A, B, and C. I want you all to realize that goal 2, objective 3, 4, and 5 are very much digging into that to honor what you said. Again, the intentionality of this, we have to close the loop. We have to make sure that those, think about community people as well. The community is really excited about X, Y, and Z. We get back to them and say, thank you for your input. We have included X, Y, and Z in our plan. So that intentionality of reaching back out.
So as you know, the strategic plan has been approved by your board or your commissioners or whatever that higher body of approval is, and now it's time to really delve into the action steps, identifying, you know, that baseline. And when you're identifying that baseline, you're really talking about how you're going to measure it too, because you're going to use that baseline. There is a loop. It's not separate at all. And so then the importance of having that very visible, having that being able to tell the story about the progress. And so we really we work with organizations to try to make that happen, understanding what they already have, understanding their baseline. What are those recommendations to bring that objective to fruition, and then how are you going to monitor it, and then how are you going to measure it, and then how are you going to report it out? Like, what is that scorecard? What is that report? You can call it, organizations call it different things, but having a way to report that out, tell the story, share the progress, is something that very much builds trust.
And I mean, trust is doing what you say you're going to do. Most fundamental level, right? Doing what you say you're going to do. We have people come to us all the time, say, you know, Doreen and Tom, we have a levy coming up, and our entire operations depends upon passing of this. We'll say, well, when's it coming up? They'll say 6 months, and our hearts are like, you know, because people, they're hardwired to not believe you when things are coming up. So I'm going to even take it a step back further.
Mm-hmm.
People will say that they want to do a community initiative, or they want to pass something, whatever. Before they want to go tactical. They want to talk about, we need a website, we need this, we need that. The first question Doreen and I will always ask is, before we get there, does anybody trust you? Because if they don't trust you, think about, trust is the foundation of communications. I want you to think about this. There's imagine a very, very, very dishonest person, whoever that is. You know this person is dishonest. You know that. But this person gives you a financial opportunity. It's beautiful. It's all glossy, and it goes to a website which is spot on. There's a beautiful video on the website. Would you invest in that? No, because the source is untrustworthy. So it's something to ask you, do people trust us? So again, to go back, a strategic plan. We heard you. We let people know we heard them. And now these are the things we are going to do over the next 3 years. And for Pete's sakes, we hear this all the time too. We'll hear community groups, like, this is a community group talking, a Rotary, Kiwanis, Chamber of Commerce. It drives us crazy when the only time we see the park district or the school district or the board of DD is when they want something. I would love to have them stop by just to say, here's what we're doing. Here's the value we're providing. So again, think about your strategic plan. You have an ask, which is 5 years out or 3 years out. You're simply going to them and saying, here's where we are. We said we were going to do this, and here's where we are. And man, people they get it. And they're like, boy, this is an organization that's doing what they say they're going to do. So Doreen, maybe let's talk a little bit about, like, functionally, mm-hmm, how to do this. So the idea is, it's what is a good way to monitor your progress so others can see that? Maybe you want to share an example of something that can be used.
And I have to preface this before I show you just one way that we help our clients our organizations monitor and manage really that strategic plan. Being having the experience of assistant superintendent in a school district, that was one of my roles, is to manage the strategic plan, manage like all of the people that were the leads and the co-leads, and making sure there was progress in supporting those people. But you have to have a tool that works for you, and we can absolutely partner with you and talk about that tool. So I'm going to share one way that with our partners districts and our partner clients. Let me see. We create, this is one tool as an example. And so in our strategic plan process, we encourage in the strategic plan, the working document, having a baseline, identifying that baseline, recommendations, implementation, and measurement. So strategic plans don't happen all in one year. You cannot start all of your initiatives, all of your goals and objectives in January or in August or whatever, all in one month. That is setting up for failure. You can try, but it's just not going to be successful. And it's not intended to have a 1 year plan. It is intended to be a full year plan. So what we do is we map out your goals, map out your objectives, and then we code it. And so organizations can see their strategic plan implementation plan at a glance. This is a high level, and you can see when the measurement comes in and then the ongoing measurement, but it gives you a nice viewpoint of what does that strategic plan look like over the year. Another thing we like to do is then translate that into another spreadsheet. And so this really is a nice way to take your plan, take those goals, take the objectives, and then map it out like this. You can see I remove the chair and the co-chair. Here's the baseline timeline, and then you can easily monitor and say in progress or completed. And this then turns into a nice way to even turn this into a scorecard or some kind of reporting system. So going back to that trust, and you're doing an annual report, or you're doing a mid-year report, and then this data is right there. And it's okay that something is not started, especially in years 1 and 2, because a lot of the goals and objectives are building on each other. And this is just one way to manage the strategic plan and all of your goals and objectives, because there's a lot of work there. It's visual. People can see, it's visible to the team, so there's accountability. And then if somebody needs support, or if somebody can say, hey, I can help you with that because it ties to my goal, this is just a great conversation tool that can be embedded in your leadership team meetings, but also as a reporting system, and then to begin to tell your story about the progress.
Yeah, there's just there's this system, there are other systems as well. Just you have to have a way
Mhm.
to systematically keep this going forward. And there's an important element of this too. It's almost like a psychological element in that we have a lot of organizations before we worked with them that the executive director or the leader, they feel this constant pressure to drive the strategic plan. Like I need to constantly prod people to do this and that. If it's done properly, the plan itself is the prod, if that makes sense. So we have a bunch of adults who are professionals who've signed up to drive these certain elements. And what you do then is you then have a quarterly meeting in which official meeting with everybody that has one of those tasks, and you go around the table, and Doreen has it's for September of 2025, she is to have had her the baseline completed for objective 1. Doreen, how we doing? And Doreen says, well, this is where we are. This is what we have. It's amazing the stuff you get done when you put somebody's name on it, and they know that they're going to report on it at the end of the month. And this is actually another piece too. This is a shameless plug, but if you ever need help with an outside resource, it's also fascinating how an external person, whoever that is, just their presence makes things move forward. It's I was kind of kidding. Like, you need outside people. Like, my wife and I have been saying this one thing to my daughter for my daughter's 16 for probably 10 years. I've been saying this one thing. My daughter came home the other night and says, Mom, Dad, you can't believe what I just heard. It was the best idea. We're like, holy smokes, we've been saying that for 10 years. It's kind of hard to be a prophet in your own land, right? So sometimes having an external person to help facilitate those meetings, things just get done. Doreen, would you talk a little bit about just the idea that a plan needs to be flexible? And this is
Yes.
one of those things that seems obvious too, but we've all got that one board member who says, now, wait a minute, you said objective 6, and this is going to be done at this particular time. I thought so. Doreen, explain a little bit about the necessity of the elasticity of a plan.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go back just one step to that. So during those quarterly meetings that you just talked about, it is always good to have a point person, whether it's an internal point person or an external point person, that is helping and coaching those leads or co-leads of that goal or objective. So if Tom is in charge of goal 1, objectives 1.2, 1 point, whatever it is, that if I'm helping manage the whole plan as an organizational leader, I'm checking in with Tom before that quarterly meeting
Yeah.
and saying, okay, so I know you're working on this. Tell me how is it going? What support do you need? And even coaching it up. And so if Tom says, we're this happened or that happened and we need to make that adjustment, that this goes into the flexibility. Then the strategic plan is not meant to be set in stone. It is meant as a working document to elevate and to amplify your organization so you can have a greater impact on your constituents, on your schools, on your students, on your community, on your parks, whatever that is. And so it's still holding you accountable, but you know what, maybe I'm not going to get it done in Q1. I'm going to get it done in Q3, and let me tell you why. And so I think those are the things. I also, when I'm working with different organizations, I know that I'm dating myself here, but if you remember the triptych, do you remember what a triptych is? AAA, so you have this goal, you have this end destination. I love the triptych, and my sister Gina and I we would fight over who got to turn the pages. So it's a map, and then you turn the page. And so sometimes there was a detour, or there was an accident or something. You got to open that triptych up, and you had a little bit of a detour, but you still were going to Florida. You were still working on that destination, but you had to take a detour. I equate the implementation sometimes you have to take a slight detour because something happened, or you get a huge grant, and so you know what, you can speed up the process, or but just knowing that you're still going to get there, you still have those goals and objectives, but know that is a flexible timeline, because you want it to work for you, and you want it to work for your organization. So again, you're still going to get that goal. The accountability is still there. And again, I think one of the important pieces, whoever is helping manage your plan, that point person within your organization, just and because Tom is right, when you have your name associated with a specific task and a specific goal, not only does it build up your leadership capacity within your teams, but it also has accountability. But you have to have that person that coordinates everything. There has to be communication, because that strategic plan, even though there may be 4, 5, 6 goals, they're not done. They're not siloed either. There is connectedness to your plan.
Doreen, expand a little more on the idea of the necessity for coaching, because having done this a long time, and you have as well, people a lot of times they get this plan done, any plan, and they're like excited about it, and then life kicks in, and they do the normal job for whatever, and then they sit back down to do this a month later, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not I'm not sure how to tackle this. So just the idea, kind of double down on that a little bit about how to check in with folks to make sure that they know what they're doing and they have clear direction to execute.
So sometimes that's somebody that has a responsibility of a goal or strategy or an objective. You want to make sure it doesn't turn into their to-do list. There's a little bit of to-do list in the process. Like it has to go on your list to do. but you want it to be more about the the body of your work as the organization. So helping people that lead or co-lead or both of them understand how their part fits into the whole strategic plan. And so it isn't so daunting. You can break it down, and then and see what are the barriers to getting this done. And as that coach there, really breaking it down. Is it that you don't? Is it unclear? Is the objective unclear? So okay, let's make it clear. What can we do? Do you need a little bit of an explanation? Do you need help communicating it with the team? So what are your barriers? And then sometimes they're chugging along and there's a lot of success too. So what are they doing that can be replicated with other leads? So it's those kinds of things, that you in a coaching session or in that check-in session, that you're saying, okay, let's go over the status of for that lead and co-lead. Let's go over the status. How's it going? And it's not a shame and blame. It is more of how do we elevate what you're doing. How can we help you and support you so you're not like on your own, even though your name's on the lead and co-lead. We want to help you, and we because you're an important part of this whole process. So
This almost seems like a silly thing to say, but we've seen this so many times that when you're having these quarterly meetings, you actually have to tell your senior staff, pay attention, because what's going to happen here is the facilities person is giving their report, and your programming person is on their phone and doing whatever else because facilities has got nothing to do with me. I'm doing programming. You actually say up front, everybody, I need you to be locked in for this next 90 minutes because is it possible, facilities, there's something you're doing that might impact programming? Is there something possible that programming might be doing that impacts our vehicles? Is it possible vehicles might be doing? And the answer is heck yes. It's an opportunity for your staff to have a little higher view. I mean, as leaders here, does it ever drive you crazy when one of your executive, you have a head of one of your departments comes and says, I want A, B, and C. And you think to yourself, yeah, that makes sense for your department. Have you thought at all about the larger ecological impact of your request? Because that makes no sense. As a leader, I would like it if you would have the capacity to pick your head up, to scan the organization, and to have a greater understanding before you make a request. So this is a long way to say the strategic planning, those meetings are a way to do that. They're a way to get people out of their own little place and to realize maybe the world doesn't revolve around them. And this is a bigger organization.
and I was talking to a superintendent yesterday actually, and he was we were working through the spreadsheet as a tool, and he said, "Oh my gosh, we're just going to have this up at every team meeting, and we're going to tackle a goal at every meeting. We're just a quick status report." And so that's just one way. It's not it doesn't necessarily. And then he was going to have semester meetings instead, but because there was going to be this constant upfront, it was going to be the first agenda item, on their agenda, and they were going to spend 20, they were going to get efficient. And so it's upfront, it's center, it's something and that reinforces that it's a dynamic document.
And by having it all the time too, this also provides defense of something we call the shiny object syndrome. In that, so you've got you got this board member, and they go to some conference, and they come back and like, oh my gosh, I just saw A, B, and C at this conference. We have to do A, B, and C. And you're able, if you're constantly going back to your plan, you can say to the enthusiastic mayor or board member or whatever else, I hear what you're saying. How does that complement what we're already doing? Or if this is a new initiative, no problem. What comes off of our present plan because we have finite resources to do things? And it makes people, and again, there might be a shiny object which is dead on, we got to do it, but people get a little more thoughtful before they just throw something your way as implement X. Well, okay, does it? And again, the idea of continually going through your plan it's a little more top of mind. If not, it becomes something. It was an exercise we did 18 months ago. It's the top of mind. The last piece I want to hit here is, again, we talked very quickly. There's an entire presentation on this, but again, for your communications plan. So when you're communicating the value of your organization, very much tie it to your strategic plan. And there are some things that you do that aren't that sexy, nobody cares about, but pick out the items that are community facing. Tell the community, again, we're building trust. Community, we're doing A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z. As we do them, you're telling folks that we're doing them. When you've completed them, you're bragging in a way that we've completed them. Hey, look, we've did what we say we're. So just really utilize that document to make sure that your community is aware of the good things you're doing.
And Tom, can I say one more thing? I think along with that, at least from an organizational standpoint, some of the work we're doing with implementation support is about culture, creating that culture to do the work. So it's that high impact model that you talked about at the beginning. It is communications, but then you also have to intentionally work on your organizational culture. And we're working with 2 schools right now on implementation, but it's about building their culture in their schools so the plan can be implemented fully. So it becomes our plan, not Tom Speaks plan, not Rich's plan, not it becomes our plan. And there's a collective pride and ownership.
Yes. And this all just requires a great deal of intentionality. We
It
put
does.
we did all the effort to build the plan. Let's make sure people know that their thoughts have been incorporated thoughtfully. And then we use that to build the culture internally and make sure that our trust is where it needs to be externally. Doreen, anything else for the good of the order this morning?
Just know, I always talk to people, you're not alone. We can be your thought partner anytime. And we're here for you as an organization and as fellow residents and citizens of Ohio and beyond.
Yeah, so as a shameless plug, any strategic planning, we would be honored to help with, or any strategic planning tracking, any communication with outsourced communications department for a lot of organizations. We do all the social media, all the outreach, all the work, and culture development. If an organization, if they've got a good culture they want to make great, we are all pretty good at that. And if we have a culture where it may be a little bit pinchy and hard, and we want to make that a good culture, we can help you there too. Everybody, thank you for your time, specifically the Riches. Always nice to see you guys. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.